Brother Habib. So I'll start with our first guest, our dear brother Habib Jakari, also known as Abu Amira, affectionately. Alhamdulillah. Uh, inshallah, I'm going to be handing over to them to provide a little introduction around how long they've been in the industry and how they got into it, etc. And that's how we'll start. But at least we are aware that our first speaker is Habib Jakari Abu Amira. And next, we have our dear brother Ahmed Adishno Abu Hamza, alhamdulillah, affectionately known as. So we're really happy that both have graciously given us their time this evening to provide this insight into this profession so that we might take benefit from it. We might be able to inform our loved ones, and we might able to, get some means and sustenance, inshallah, for ourselves and our families. So without further ado, I'm going to begin with the first question, and as mentioned, it's more of a intro. So can I ask, perhaps 2-3 minutes, Brother Habib, could you provide a brief introduction about who you are, how long you've been working in your field, and what attracted you to your field? Inshallah, the follow-up question is going to be around actually tell us what is quantity surveying, but for now, I still want people to be guessing in case they've not done any research or Googling. So for now, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been working, and what attracted you to the industry.
Yes, yeah, I'm a quantity surveyor, and as Tawfiq said, the next question will be me describing, letting you guys know what that actually is. So I've been in the industry for 8 years. I went to uni, done quantity surveying, finished, alhamdulillah, and I got a job in my chosen field, which is, it's a good thing to come out of uni and do that. So career-wise, my 8 years, 7 of those years I've been working for a main contractor, which is working. So there's a client, someone decides to do a project. So it may be a council or a client. So someone who has a lot of money and decides to buy a piece of land and decides that they want to build a building. So main contracting, they employ us to manage that, which means we employ the subcontractors to build it. We get paid by the client, so we create a contract. We can manage all the process, which is the architectural process, structural engineering, the full process. We are doing it. And my last year, since March, I've started working for a developer, which is a bit different. So developers buy the land, they build it, and they, to sell it, essentially. So I've been doing that for last year, which has been quite interesting. It's a bit different, but I've learned a lot, and I've been able to see a different side of the construction industry. So with what attracted me to the industry, whilst I was in sixth form, I had no idea about the professional aspect of construction. So as far as I was concerned, and which I expect most people probably think is bricklayers, builders, bum, that sort of thing. But there was an uncle in Old Kent Road Mosque he is a quantity surveyor who spoke to myself and Ahmed about his profession, and that sort of opened my eyes to it and made me see construction differently. So as I walked around the streets of London, I'm looking at buildings in a totally different light, and I've done a bit of research into it, and then decided to study it, and I haven't looked back since. As Tawfiq also said earlier, the reason why this talk I think is quite essential is because if everyone else has a similar, thought about construction that I had at the time, there's a lot of people that weren't looking to going into this industry, and this sort of talk will hopefully allow a few more younger people, a few more people within our community to, choose this or have this as a career choice.
Now, Barakallahu Feek. And I'm going to come back to that question, to the point you raised around an uncle speaking to you about this and the importance of having those coaches and guides Barakallahu feek. So, Brother Ahmed, same question to you. A brief introduction. How long have you been working in this industry, and what attracted you towards this industry?
Walaikum salam, bismillah. I also, same route as Habib, to be fair. I studied for 3 years in university. After finishing university, I went straight into working, just like Habib said as well, main contractor. And I've been doing it ever since, roughly same, about 7-8 years, same as well. What attracted me to it, to be fair, exactly the same thing as Habib as well, if I'm honest. I had no idea what it was. I think I actually wanted to be a lawyer initially when I was in sixth form. I didn't have the grades for it, and also I didn't really like it. I did some experience in it, and I didn't like it. And then an uncle spoke to us, and he just said, "Why don't you give it a go?" So I decided to give it a go. Alhamdulillah, I went to university. I did it. I think for about the first year, it was actually quite interesting, and I thought, I'll stick it through. So it was a little bit of a gamble, to be fair. But yeah, alhamdulillah, it was good. That was it, really. That was how and why I became a quantity surveyor, and I've been doing it ever since. So yeah.
Alhamdulillah, barakallahu feek. All right then, so we've mentioned the term quantity surveyor a few times now, and I'm sure a lot of people might have a vague idea that yes, it relates to the construction industry. But what, I guess, exactly is the job of a quantity surveyor, or does it vary? And if it does, I guess what are the different, permutations of that?
Okay. So yeah, it varies a little bit because there are different types of quantity surveyors. My role as a quantity surveyor is, and to be honest, all quantity surveyors do the same thing in that aspect, is to control the cost and report the costs up the line. So, everyone's expectations are managed. So if it's a client, you're working for a client, they want to know, this is how much it's costing today. Tomorrow there's been X, Y, and Z changes. This is how much it's going to cost. So they can get their money in line, because they're going to have to pay for it. And the same with businesses. If they know that they're going to make X amount of money, they can invest it, differently. So it's about managing that cost and reporting up the line. Our role would be dealing with the client, dealing with subcontractors, dealing with contractual matters, raising contracts, procuring. So creating a contract with the subcontractors, in my case. So with the decorators, the ground workers, electricians, and so on, and paying them. And, I'm sure Ahmed's heard this as well. The most important one is getting paid. The whole point of our business is to get money in. Cash is king. So yeah, that's my opinion on what surveying is.
Awesome. So, Brother Ahmed, with that, could you give us some insights on what are the paths to becoming a QS for those who might be interested in it?
Okay, so the route Habib took, is to go to university, study a 3-year course usually, and you come out of a BSc, and then you can apply to become a quantity surveyor. Usually requirements to be a quantity surveyor, it's not even any specific A-levels or BTECs. It's usually like a GCSE C in maths and maybe English. But obviously you still need A-levels or BTECs, etc., to get into university anyway, but there's no specific A-level that I know of that you need to qualify or need to have a certain grade to get onto the course in university. And then you study for 3 years. Initially, they teach you, the first year was like kind of a built environment. They just teach you everything in terms of construction as a whole. Not even just construction. I think it's even just like real estate as well. Some of the students we had in our classes. And then years 2 and 3, it becomes more specific to what a quantity surveyor does, which is a lot of things what Habib said. Payments, measurements, all the skills you're required to do the job, they teach you in years 2 and 3. Another route that I know of is if you go like the apprentice route. So you come out of college and then you join, usually like bigger firms, to be fair, that usually do it. And then they pay you a salary to be a surveyor, like your assistant, trainee, apprentice, etc. But then they also send you to university for 5 years. So you'll be working, you'll be going to university part-time. So rather than take 3 years, you're now doing it over a 5-year period. But you're not taking a student loan. You're being paid. So you're working as a surveyor or as an apprentice. So you're learning on the job, as well as going to university at the same time as well. So sometimes they give you time off to do your uni courses, etc. So to be able to get the degree. And once you finally get the degree in after 5 years, then you're like a fully fledged quantity surveyor with a lot of experience, to be fair.
Awesome. Great. So we don't want to pull
Can I
people
add to
away
that?
from, oh,
If that's
sure thing.
okay.
Bismillah.
That second route, even though me and Ahmed didn't go down that route, I think it's probably the best route. Simply because you're learning on the job as well as studying. So there was, and I'm sure, I don't know, we'll ask Ahmed if he agrees, but when we were in uni, you could tell the students that were on day release, there's the questions that they ask is different because they know, what the teacher has said. They've seen that yesterday on site, or they've heard it in a meeting. So, I guess the purpose of this hopefully is that parents will sort of guide their kids into this sort of industry. And ideally, if you can guide your kids through that path where they're studying, your university gets paid and they're working, they're guaranteed a job. I think that's the best outcome that can come out of this. And, there's a lot of people with the uni fees. That's a problem. That rules it out if a company is paying for it.
Nice. Perfect. And on that point, we all know that parents from our home country, or from a lot of developing countries anyway, they really want their children to become doctors. But on the balance, I did a quick search this morning around the starting pay for junior doctors, and it's around maybe the 30K mark. To be fair, a lot of them actually start on maybe like 28. So I guess as a bit of a carrot, could you give us an indication of what a first year quantity surveyor could be looking at potentially bagging? Provide some insight on that. Everyone wants to know. It's the burning question. What does it pay? Show me the money.
I think. Well, I started personally as a commercial administrator, so I didn't start straight away as a quantity surveyor. To be fair, the way I was able to get in, because I think at the time when we finished university around 2012, 11, it was a recession, so there wasn't much jobs going. So I couldn't get on as an apprentice, I couldn't get on as a trainee, etc. So I started as a commercial administrator, and the salary at that time was about 18,000 per annum. But I think, to be fair, talking to some of the newbies now that I work with, etc., I think they say about 25, you're looking at about 25K. And it comes with some benefits as well, like a car allowance, which does range depending on your grade, but I think the minimum usually is about what, £3,000, you say, £3,000 and 3.5. So if you took the car, or you could take the option of having a car. So they won't give you the £3,000 extra. They'll give you a brand new car or a used car. That's about 3-4 years old, insured, etc. Or you could just say, I've got my own car, and they'll give you an additional 3,000 or 3.5K on top of your allowance, your salary.
Awesome. So, great. So pretty much equal to what you might start on as a junior doctor. But there's who are weighing it up. Barakallahu feek. All right then. So on to the important matter now of work-life balance. So as Muslims, the dunya is not our be-all and end-all. It's not our end point. So we definitely want careers where, alhamdulillah, we're able to benefit the community, but at the same time, it's not taking over our whole lives. So can you provide some insight into what work-life balance looks like for you in this industry, and what you've observed as well? How bad can it get? And also, I guess, what's the kind of average that can be expected? Are you working 7 days a week into the evenings with your laptop at home, or are you on call from the clients all the time, or is it pretty much set times, etc.?
Is that for Jack? Do you want to run that?
Okay. Work-life balance. I think, yeah, as you said, it depends on the individual. There are some people that they may have the same role as myself, and they are working till 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. And there's other people, same role, same responsibility, who are leaving at 5:30. You know, and you probably wouldn't say one's doing any better than the other. But I think it's based on the individual, and at the end of the day, the way a business works, they're trying to get as much out of you as possible, you know. So if you do work to 8 o'clock, they might not complain. They probably won't complain. So it's up to the individual to, you know, manage their time. So for instance, you know, things that I've seen, you know, things that I planned. So now I work in Stratford, and my gym is in Stratford. So my plan, in order to have a good work-life balance, was go to gym on my break. That way, at lunchtime, go to gym at lunchtime. That way I can leave work, go home, you know, go and play with my family, go and, you know, so that was my tactic of trying to achieve that good work-life balance. You know, so, and, you know, there's other techniques I've seen people work from home, and of course there's a reason behind that. But again, it's on the individual. If you have to push it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To be fair as well, though. So Habib alluded to this initially about main contracting, etc. And obviously, projects vary. Sometimes they could be like 3 months, 1 year, you know, 3 weeks, etc. But the locations also vary as well. Hence why they might give you a car allowance or a car. So I've worked, for example, in Cambridge, and work-life balance is out of the window because you need to get to work at 8 o'clock and you're there till 5. And by the time you even get home, it's like 7 o'clock, 7:30, if there's no traffic. All you want to do is sleep. And you'll be doing this for like 6, 7 months. So yeah, it really depends on the location you're at. Initially, when you first start out, you just take whatever they give you. I think as time goes on, and if you build a rapport with your line manager, etc., you can sometimes, you know, I don't want to work on that job, and they give it to someone else who's a little bit closer, because, you know, I've worked in some cities, villages that I've never heard of before and probably will never ever visit again in my life. But it's just, you know, and you only live, your location where you live doesn't change, so you have to find a way to get there. So in terms of that, it can be quite difficult, if I'm honest. But if you, like, when there's time and you're lucky and you get a good job that's around your area, like I've literally worked 10 minutes from my house before. It's great. But then I said I've worked in Cambridge as well, so you know, it really does vary, to be fair. And sometimes it can be really tricky, man, because if you're working so far away, or the job is really like hectic, there's a lot of pressure in terms of time, like the duration of what you've got to deliver and the time frame which you have to deliver is so tight, you find that you have to get to work really quickly. You don't really get too much of a break, so you can get back just in a reasonable time. Or you could be there all day, if I'm honest. And so sometimes even like, you know, Salah and like trying to get to Juma and those kind of things, trying to find the Juma place when it's like a predominantly white village, you know, like, or even somewhere to eat, sometimes it can be quite difficult, to be fair. But that's for like main contracting. Obviously, if you're like a quantity surveyor, like maybe like a civils company, like doing roads, bridges, etc., you might be in the same location for majority of your career, so you won't have, you know, you get used to it and you find a way of working. So it really depends on the project that you're on, if I'm honest, and the location in which you've been tasked to go and work in.
Barakallahu feek. I mean, you alluded to the point around depends on the type of project. So I wonder if you can give a bit more insight into the various types of projects that kind of exist within this wider concept of construction, and at the same time, perhaps you can both cover or touch on what your day-to-day looks like today, 8 years into your career. What does it look like for somebody of your seniority? So maybe Jax, you can start us off.
So the first thing was the different types of projects.
Yeah, exactly. So he mentioned like civils, and mentioned like also what are the different kind of jobs or bits that kind of jobs you might be on.
So the types of companies that I've worked for is limited to certain types of buildings that we build. So I've done housing and commercial buildings, so which is housing, flats, blocks, that sort of stuff, as well as commercial buildings, which is offices, and within that part of the business we done schools. So that in my career, that's all I've done. But you know, in other places, I think Ahmed's done things like Sainsbury's and places like that. There's other surveyors that do road civil stuff, so roads, bridges. I haven't done anything on that side. It looks interesting, and who knows, one day it might be, you know, if I could make that sort of move, that might be something for the future. But yeah, there are different things. Everything that they build, you need a quantity surveyor for. You need a site team.
Yeah. And what does your day-to-day look like?
So my day-to-day, our day-to-day is, I think, over the year, over the duration of the project will change. But the main, at the moment, my project's just starting, or will start, or started on Monday. So my day-to-day is procurement. So I'm sending out drawings to subcontractors, getting their quotes back, doing the comparisons, making an assessment on their comparisons, making sure they've allowed for everything, and selecting a contractor, raising a contract with them. So that's pretty much what I do every day at the moment. But as the project progresses, you know, this will change and it will, you know, become more detailed. So things like with them contractors that I have procured, I would need to go and check their work, see how much of the work that they've done, get paid for it, and pay them for it. At the same time, money needs to come into us, so I need to, you know, apply for the monies from the client in order to ensure that we get paid for it on time. You know, probably one of the main parts of our jobs is managing the site team, you know, because there's a lot of ways that money can be spent on a construction project. And one of them is, you know, the people that I'm working with, you know, they might, if you've got an opportunity to take something, they'll take it. So they might decide I need 5 laborers when really and truly they only need 2. You know, the easiest way to get something done is by spending money. And I need to manage that, question the decisions that they're making. So I think that's one of the big day-to-day things that is a constant occurrence, and it gives me a headache, to be honest.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. But Ahmed, same question to you. What does your day-to-day look like today, given your seniority and I guess the job you're currently on?
I think so. It's a bit like what Habib said, to be fair. It depends on the time of the month. My project is on the way now, so I've gone through the procurement stage. So I've already let out all my trades. I have every package that I need to build the project has been bought out. I know who's going to work on that job and when they need to be on site. So I've gone through that stage, to be fair. So now the stage that I'm at now is actually the client keeps changing as to what they want. They already agreed a design, but now they say, oh no, actually I want different carpet. We want different blinds. Actually, can you provide a better air conditioning system, etc. So what that means is now I have to price those works to know to let them know if they can afford it, or, you know, if it's going to impact the program, and if it impacts the program, how much is that going to cost, etc. Because obviously anything that is more cost as well, doesn't it? So I price up change variations, etc. like Habib as well, just dealing with the site team in terms of, like I said, they're always trying to get things done, but for some reason they just always want to spend money. I just never understand why. It's as if like I don't have any common sense, but I don't know. I mean, on Friday just gone, just a simple example, we have Temper Electrics on site. Temper Electrics is the electrics that powers the site because the site obviously has no power. And the company that we're using for the Temper Electrics can come on Monday. And we have works going on Monday, but they can come on Monday to facilitate other people be able to do their works on Monday, right? For some reason, the site manager decided that he should tell them to come on Saturday. The problem with that is that it costs more money to work on the weekend, which I didn't allow for. So then you have to kind of argue, like, kind of question, like, why are you doing that? For what reason? How does that facilitate anything? If, for example, the works on Monday needed to happen from 9 o'clock in the morning, like first thing in the morning, I could understand, and maybe we might just have to take the loss. But if there is nothing pressing for Monday, why not just do it Monday morning? So there's certain things that you kind of just have to keep an eye on. And that's why sometimes, even if you work from home or away from site, you're not really privy to this. So you have to sometimes kind of keep an eye on them and be on site. But yeah, on my day-to-day, I mean, to be fair, it's not quite busy. Like I said, it depends on the stage of the project and the time of the month. If it's towards the end of the month, then you're doing cost reporting, meaning you're kind of collecting all the costs that you spent today, all the monies you've paid out, all the monies you received today, and then you're reporting to your seniors as to where you stand and if you're on target to meet the target that they set you in terms of profitability wise. And, you know, during the month, like kind of, let's just say like just a, you know, a period during the month, then you might be just, you know, valuing works, you know, valuing payments. Because people will give you applications as to how much they would like to be paid for. And you would go and check, has this person done this work that they're asking for money for? Because obviously it's our job to make sure we protect our company. I wouldn't overpay someone, because what happens then is like the leverage is then with the subcontractor, and I'm now begging them to do that thing. Whereas if I don't pay you for that thing, then now you're going to be the one kind of pestering me like, oh, we're going to get paid, we're going to get paid. So it's so it's like that. So it's peaks and troughs, to be fair. Sometimes it's very, very busy, like, and other times it's quite good. Like, I'm guessing Habib right now, the procurement side is quite stressful because things have lead times. So, for example, if you need to get glazing, etc., like, you know, windows or something, and it's made in Europe or something, and it's like takes 8 weeks to do that thing, but they need to be on site, for example, by the 1st, which means you need to have ordered it 7 weeks, if not, you know, before then. And even before you can order it, then you still need to go through the design stage of making sure that everyone's happy with the design before you can even place that order. So it's just trying to be on time, making sure you do things in the right manner at the right time. But once you get through that hurdle, then it does kind of die down a little bit, and you just kind of manage the day as it goes along. And then end of the month is busy, and towards the end of the project, it becomes incredibly busy because you just want to get the job over the line without spending too much money, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Barakallahu feek. All right then. Next question, and this one's for Brother Habib, and it's a question on career progression and exit opportunities. So does the job that you were doing, I guess, when you became a quantity surveyor, really differ, I guess, in scope and responsibility now that, I guess, you're 9 years in? Or yeah, what does the varying kind of what does it look like as you kind of make that journey along the path of being a quantity surveyor, and also just around exit opportunities? So what have you seen people who, let's say, develop this expertise within quantity surveying, what have they gone on to do?
Okay, career progression. So yeah, I think the career progression is based on, you know, opportunities that you've received, and it's, again, I think I've mentioned this a few times, it's about the individual. So depending on who it is, if they're chasing opportunities, they're saying, so you come in as a trainee, you get certain packages to look after, the smaller packages, the packages that there's less risk. And if you're not careful, you could be doing that sort of thing for quite a long time. And depending on the individual, if that person's, driven, what they'll be saying is, okay, I've done that. Can I just work with you on a package that may be too big for them, but they're gaining a bit of experience. And then, the next time they might say, okay, yeah, the person that they're working with saying, okay, this person can do this. Let him have the window package, for instance, which may be a bit, the normal way of working, maybe a bit too early for that person. But because they've shown that they can do it, they're organized. So in the opportunities that you take will let you get to the next step. So they always say to us that if you want to get promoted, you have to be doing that next role for a period of time. And that period, and it might be a bit simple to just split it, the different roles of being a trainee, assistant, and so on by the packages that you're doing. But, if we were supposed to do list it all out, there's certain packages that certain levels will be doing. So you want to be at least helping, gaining a bit of experience on the packages and being able to manage it. Yeah, so to me, that's the easiest way. And once you've said that, okay, I've done a groundworks package. Once you've said I've done a groundworks package, you sit with your director or your, whoever your line manager is and say, I've done this. Why am I at this level still? It's difficult. It's difficult for anyone to say anything other than, okay, yeah, fair enough, you've done well. In 6 months' time, we'll be looking to promote you or we'll give you a bit more money or whatever.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are endless if you're driven, basically. And, I've seen it, and yeah, there's an opportunity.
Yeah, as with most industries, good to hear. And then exit opportunities. You find quantity surveyors pretty much stay put in the industry, or even if they're not staying put as quantity surveyors, or what else within the space could they potentially spin off to do with the skills that they've developed?
So I'm sure there are surveyors that have, ventured out of the industry and, done other things, maybe gone into banking or whatever, because I think there's quite a lot of transferable skills. We're looking at money and how money's spent and reporting it.
Yeah. I'm thinking more on the developer side of things. So like I guess, being a person who you're working for clients and subcontracting, is there perhaps you become the client in some respects, the quantity surveyors spin off to do that?
Yeah, so yes, it's something that probably a lot of people within this industry does. They go into, maybe buying property and fixing it up, or, buying land and building on it, developing it and selling it. So, eventually, who knows, maybe it's something that I would like to do going forward as well, because you're seeing the process every day. And I'm sure in most industries is, you've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years. You think, why can't I do this? So, yeah, I think that is an exit strategy that most people would go into. And yeah, to be honest, I've seen and heard of people doing that.
Yeah. So if anyone's looking to develop land in the UK, you've got Brother Habib and Brother Ahmed to reach out to, inshallah. Barakallahu feek. So last question on topic one before we move on to the question around how can people be more commercial in their own roles. It's a question around building a profile internally and externally, so that I guess, to provide some context to this, in order to, we all know the importance of networking. So in your industry, how important is it, I guess, to be known, essentially, for instance, when it comes to actually clients deciding to go with your firm or you as the particular QS, or for your manager to decide, actually, no, this QS is going to do it rather than this one, because I feel the client is going to get on with this one better. So how important is it, and how do you go about and advise in how we build our profile and brand internally and externally? So, Brother Ahmed, if you can take this one.
Okay. So on an internal level, I think networking, from what I'm understanding from the question anyway, how I perceive the question is that what I do a lot, and what we do quite frequently, a lot of us, is we deal a lot with subcontractors, tradesmen, flooring, scaffolding, windows, decoration, every single component that you think is required to build something, we deal with everything. So any person that comes on a construction site would have come through us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I personally think it's actually really important to be able to network and build a relationship, build a rapport with subcontractors. Why? Because on every job, more time than not, you need a favor. You need a favor. For example, if someone gives me I'm given a job and there isn't much money in the job, or there's, I don't know, let's say I've only got £20,000 to decorate, a block of, a 10-story flat or whatever it is, and that isn't really viable. It shouldn't be viable. When you go to the market and you get prices back, everyone's saying 15K. I can easily, a number of times, I just called someone and said, you know what, I need a favor. Can you do me this job for this number? Or can you come close to this number? I shouldn't really say this because I think you got Tinder legitimately, to be fair. But anyway, so, and then they'll come to site, they'll have a look at it, etc. And they'll say, okay, yeah, do you know what, for this time, I'll do it for you. So what that means is that I've now kept my job profitable. So to my superiors, I'm doing a good job. I've just, I've kept it. I've done something that they practically, I don't know, I don't know how to use the word, but they've not given me too much leeway, and I've somehow made it work.
Mm-hmm.
So to them, it means I'm a safe pair of hands.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've just, I've got the job, and to that person, he's done me a favor. So he knows the next time that I get a job, I'm going to come back to him again as well.
Mm-hmm.
So building a rapport and networking internally, I think it helps a lot, to be fair. Like it is quite important, if I'm honest, because you can easily break those relationships by, I've seen some surveyors that are very, very strict, very contractual. And I think for the longer term, it doesn't always help. So they might, for example, let's say, I don't know, the person is claiming an extra £5,000 on their package for that job they've worked on. And they're literally making this man, because a subcontractor, by the way, just for kind of information, a subcontractor is usually just a man with, like, a man, an individual who not in a van, but he employs, like, 15, 20 people, some of them self-employed. So he's also got a family to look after as well. It's not another massive company like my own, if that makes sense. So if you're making them work really hard for something they genuinely did do, and you're not being fair and reasonable, which we use quite frequently, like to be fair and reasonable, then next time it becomes very tricky to use that person again. Even if you just want a price, you don't want to use them just to price things, becomes difficult. So so it's quite important, I think, to build rapport, to network, to make sure you keep good relationships, to try and negotiate if you can, and just be fair and reasonable, if I'm honest. On an external basis, I haven't done too much of this, and to be fair, but from what I understand from the question is that a lot of the people that I've seen rise really fast in the industry on a commercial quantity surveying level, from QS to senior to commercial manager to direct, etc., are people who have been at other companies or who have worked with a client and built a really good rapport with the client, so that when they either leave that company and they go somewhere else, they bring that client along, which brings that company more work. So obviously you're valued more, if that makes, because obviously you've brought more money into the company, and that the jobs and the opportunities could be endless from that one client. So on an external basis, meaning that whenever you're client facing, because we do face clients, I don't know, a few times in a month, or even just in your liaison with them when it comes to dealing with changes and you're pricing things with them, is to try and keep a good rapport with them as well, because you don't want to be the reason for your company not to get any more work from that individual client, because it will come back saying, you know what, such and such a surveyor, I didn't really like the way he dealt with things, or he wasn't very good, or even sometimes they might even just go over your head and be like, can you give me a price, or can you do this task for me? Meaning that, the relationship with the person on site wasn't so good.
Yeah.
So on an external basis is to try and keep good relations with the clients as well, because, it helps keep the business running, because ultimately you're only working because the company keeps winning work. if the company doesn't win any work, you're also kind of redundant, just sitting around the office waiting for the next product to come along. So yeah, that's
Barakallahu Feek, and thank you very much to both of you for providing an insight into the world of what it takes and what it is to be a quantity surveyor. Really appreciate that. If people do have follow-up questions for you, I do have some questions in the chat, and I'll ask them in a second. But how might they be able to get in contact with you? Are you available on LinkedIn, or what's your preferred means? Let's say if you've got a kid who might be interested in this field.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also in the Muslim platform group. So if anyone needs to get in contact, you can ask Alamin.
Awesome. We do have one question around if there's a particular kind of surveyor degree that you have to have, or any kind of a professional accreditation or exams that you need to sit to be, I guess, chartered in your industry. Is there any such thing in terms of like actual qualifications beyond your degree that all quantity surveyors need to pass?
Yeah, so people do masters, and the chartership. So to a recognized body, so like RICS, CIOB, I think there is more, but those are the main two. I think there's different type of surveyors that it is more useful to. So for us, it's something that I want to do, and I'm planning to do this year. But I don't think it's necessarily that important in my current field. But in the future, maybe. So I want to do it. It's something that I think it's another string to my bow, or bow to my string, or whatever the saying is. Yeah. So there's two routes that I'm aware of: the RICS and CIOB, and you pay a membership every year. So yeah, I think those are the two.
Makes sense. Barakallahu Feek. And the question we have around how you might be able to get in contact with them for any follow-up questions, etc. You can reach out on the WhatsApp platform. And I guess maybe a question that might be on the back of people's mind is, are there sisters in this profession, or not that many? Is it mostly, as we see construction, a male-dominated field? Last one on that. What's been your observation?
You do get women quantity surveyors, to be fair. Very few, if I'm honest. It's mainly a male-dominated industry, if I'm honest. Yeah. But you do get women, to be fair. Yeah. So you could, I mean, yeah. So yeah.
Thanks for that, Barakallahu Feek.
One thing I would just want to add there is, we're only talking about quantity surveying, but in construction there's more than just quantity surveying. We have site managers, we have design managers. There's a number of roles that we all come together to do. So yeah, quantity surveying might not be the route for everyone, but there's a number of roles. So I would look into construction as a whole. There's a lot of professional roles, and yeah.
Barakallahu Feek. All right then. So moving on to the second topic, and this is about how we can think commercial in our roles. So let's take a step back from the construction industry at the moment, but just general advice, nasiha, to people who are in their roles at work. How can they think more commercial? So first question I've got is, why is it important for an individual to understand how their role impacts the bottom line, and how can people, I guess, start to develop the ability to articulate this? So start off with you, Brother Habib. Okay. Why is it important? Is it important?
Yes, it is. So the question was, why is it important to know our impact on the bottom line? right?
How our role impacts the bottom line. So regardless of the role you're doing, so not you in particular, but in general for the people like in listening and tuning in today, when they're thinking about their career and the job that they're currently doing, why is it important for them to be able to articulate this is the impact my role has on the bottom line?
Okay. It's important because it sort of dictates how important you are to your business. You know, I'm not gonna, name any particular roles or anything like that, but every, in a business, everyone is useful, but there's some people that are less useful than others, and there's some people that are dispensable. And if your role influences how the bottom line, at the end of the day, all businesses are there to make money. If your role influences the amount of money that business is making, you become 100 times more important. 100 times more. They can't lose you. It's harder for them to lose you. It's harder for them to get rid of you, and they want to invest in you. So, the aim should always be, the aim should always be to be one of those important people.
And we had a session a few maybe months ago on the 80-20 rule, and it speaks true here. There's probably 20% of the employees who are really driving 80% of the value. So you really want to be in that echelon, and being able to articulate how your role impacts the bottom line. You can do a kind of a litmus test for yourself to see how whether you're part of that 20% or whether you're part of the of the 80%. But let's say, for instance, somebody says, all right, that's all well and good for the private sector, or actually it's all well and good for a front-facing role, or even like a role like yourself, where you're not kind of you're not making sales per se, but at least you're managing costs, so it's very clear. But I'm in a customer ops role, or I'm in a part of the business where actually it's not very clear how I might articulate the value in a monetary perspective. So is there, I guess, are there other ways that people might approach this if this is the situation they find themselves in? Are there other metrics by which they can still tell a compelling story around how they bring value to the table? Brother Ahmed. So going beyond the numbers now, are there, beyond the financial numbers, I should say, are there any other ways for a person to articulate the value they bring to their organization?
Yeah, there is. I think first and foremost, you need to be known as someone who's like a safe pair of hands, someone who like does what they're supposed to do, and sometimes goes beyond. You need to be someone who's reliable, someone that they can go to, and they know that task is going to be done in a correct manner. Because a lot of the times you find that people will take a lot of shortcuts, in any field, in any career, in any whatever it is, and sometimes it's not always the best thing to do. If I'm honest, taking shortcuts, it's not always the best thing to do. So I think monetary wise, it's not. It depends on the role as well. You are, to be fair, because for example, I go back to construction, but the site team aren't judged on how much money they make. They're judged on how quick, the build, if it's built within the program, if it's built correctly, if it's built in a safe manner, so they're judged on different things. So once the person understands his roles within the organization and those KPIs that he will be marked against, then I think it's easier to understand what value add to your team and who you are as a role, as a person. Yeah. Without understanding that, then I think you fail, to be fair, because you might think you're doing a good job just because you're coming on time and you're leaving late, or you put in a lot of hours, or you write really articulately. But if you don't fulfill those certain KPIs which your managers or directors are looking for that person to do, then you've probably fallen short, if I'm honest. And if you are doing those things, then you can feel confident in yourself that actually I'm doing a good job. And sometimes you don't even say a word; they know it. That one, because when you go on annual leave or when you go, that presence is missing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. And I guess to add to that, the more kind of senior you become, the more important your role in setting the culture of the organization. So when it comes to attitudes and behaviors, that increasingly becomes a yardstick by which you're measured against, because a lot of times they say it feeds down from the top. So if you're the abrasive person, or you're in the culture of swearing all the time, that seeps through. So yeah, definitely on that point around, if you find yourself in a role where actually it's quite difficult to articulate what the impact is on the bottom line from a P&L perspective, but Ahmed's right that there's always KPIs that are going to be important to your role, that allows you to quantify the success or to quantify the results of your day to day. So it's always important to be able to articulate that. So Barakallahu Feek. So I guess last question for you both is, we hear a lot of the time this phrase that you need to think like an owner, or you need to negotiate a fair deal for your client or for your employers. How do you kind of understand these phrases, and how can it help a person to be more commercial in their roles?
Yeah, it's a good question. One thing I think in the last few years, I've realized, when I started my career procurement wise, you always want to get whatever it is for as cheap as possible. And in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years is now that I've realized, when things go wrong on site, when you realize that, okay, yes, this is the reason this has happened, is because I went for the cheapest guy who has a small labor force that they're subcontracting all their work out. Whereas now, I'm thinking more holistically that, okay, if, like, I think Ahmed mentioned something about Europe earlier. If there's a lift company, for instance, in England, and there's a lift company in Spain, the Spanish one might be a bit less. But then if I think about the bigger picture, when the lift breaks down, I'm calling someone in Spain. They might be able to get someone down in a day, the same way the other one can, but am I going to have to make 4 phone calls? Am I going to have to, I know there's not a time difference, but the office hours might not be the same. So you look at the bigger picture rather than just, okay, I'm going to save £2,000. Because if I have to make 8 phone calls, I'm spending my time might be worth, the time that I spent doing something that would have been 1 phone call to the company in England might be worth that saving that I made, over the period of 5 or 10 years. So now I've learned to look at things as a whole, look at things, that the way, and I think one of the benefits of this role that we're in is that we're sitting in the rooms where these decisions are made. So we might not understand something at the beginning of that meeting, but at the end, we will understand how that decision was made. And then the next time we are making a decision, we'll be thinking on that wave. So I think, I'll look at things more holistically. And in my opinion, that's the thinking like a boss, and one of the main things as well is, that whole idea of knocking that company down to try and get it as cheap as possible. You want people to make money. It's not a case of, because if you're losing, if I ask you to do something and you're so desperate and you do it for half the price that it's going to cost you, you're not going to do it the same way you would if you're making an okay amount of money. And there'll be things, you're not going to give me, if I want someone today, but someone else or there's a job that you're making money on, you're not going to give me your labor. You'll give that person, you'll prioritize that person, that company. So that's those are the results of, trying to undercut and trying to, squeeze every penny out of them. So, I've learned, let them make money, but, let's put everyone in a good position, and then we'll come out, with a good result.
Yeah. So rather than it be a zero-sum game where there's winners and losers, it's a positive-sum game where everyone's a winner. Makes sense. And but Ahmed, any contribution on this point around thinking like an owner, negotiating a fair deal, and also just your final advice, Nasiha, on the general topic of being more commercial in your role, and also the first topic we had around people who might be interested in this field.
I think Habib covered it quite good, mashallah, to be fair. There isn't a great deal. I mean, I think that, like I said, everyone is trying to feed their family at the end of the day. So we're all going to do a job in the best way we can do it. But it doesn't make sense to burn bridges, so as it were. But at the same time as well, this skill of being, in my opinion, this skill of being a quantity surveyor, a lot of the skills are transferable. A lot of them are. In my opinion, I actually sometimes consider myself as a businessman, if I'm honest. I'm given a salary or an amount to spend to build something, and have to build it within that amount, within a certain time, working with a team. And if the job loses, it's like my own money I've lost. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think, so what I would, to be fair, my thing is, if I'm honest, because I think that it's nice that we have this platform for Muslims and we're talking about our professions, etc. My thing is even about being commercial in the role. I think that what we should even push more, because I think this whole business series is about empowering the Muslims, right? And I think that actually is teaching the people, or showing the people that actually you can use with a commercial acumen, you can use it in your daily life. So for example, a person, I don't know, requires an MOT or like service, etc. You don't just take the first price that you're given. You might go and get two prices, and then you look at the prices and you try to understand what exactly is covered in one. Is it covered in the other one? Am I getting a fair deal here? And even then, when you finally decide on choosing which of those garages you want to go to, when it comes to paying for it, you might just ask, why not? Can I get a discount or something like that? He's not gonna, he won't shoot you for asking for a discount. And sometimes you can even leverage the discount by saying, oh, do you know what? You've been such a great, been good service. It's been so good. I'm going to tell my family and friends about you. So now actually you've gone from a position of needing his service and his help to actually him wanting you to come back and being like, do you know what? I want to do you a favor. I'm going to, I don't know, charge you less, or show you appreciation. I'm going to, next time I'll bring you in quicker, or, we need to, as Muslims, be able to create leverage without being forceful about it, but not thinking that we're not worthy of it, if that makes sense. I think, and the same thing with, like, if you were to, I don't know, if you had a house, you want to build an extension, what value does that extension bring to your house? And even then, understanding what exactly you're buying when a person comes to your house to tell you this is the price. For whatever you do in life, being able to understand what exactly are you buying. And then when you understand what you're buying, then understanding how to manage those people in that process of carrying out those acts or those things, whatever it may be. It could be anything, and then once you learn those skills, and being able to, being as an individual, pay them what's fair. You wouldn't overpay someone who does a shoddy job. It doesn't make sense. But feeling confident enough that you can question that this is a shoddy job. Does that make sense? And I feel like these are the skills that you learn as a quantity surveyor that I think in your day-to-day life, anyone should be able to do, question, understand, and not feel that, that they're not within their right to do so. Because ultimately nobody wants to lose money. But at the same time, you should pay what's fair and what's reasonable. So yeah, but like Habib said as well, I think I would encourage people to be quantity surveyors, to be fair, or even just work in the construction industry, because it's a good industry. We see in this pandemic, for myself, I found that a lot of the industries that are really safe are like healthcare, that just continues going because everyone needs healthcare, no matter, what the state of the nation is, but construction as well. Till today, I'm still working, the trains are full, everyone's on site. Like, construction is a strong industry that in terms of what the industry needs to keep ticking by. So I would say, yeah, just like kind of, if you're interested in the construction industry, you don't have to necessarily be a quantity surveyor, but you could be a design manager, which usually people who are architects sometimes become design managers. You could be a a site manager who manages the build. You could be a planner, someone who just literally just programs the job. You know, there are so many different factors and variables, and it'll be nice to see more black people, if I'm honest with you, because right about that, there isn't many black people in construction, if I'm honest. So it'll be good to see more black people. But yeah, man, that's it for me.
Barakallahu feek. And Brother Habib, any final comments, contributions, advice?
Yeah, alhamdulillah that this sort of conversation was had today. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, this whole journey started from an uncle, you know, telling me about this industry. And that, you know, that uncle was the former president of MAN, who, you know, if he didn't sit down and speak to me about it, who knows where, you know, I would be right now. So, you know, I appreciate, you know, that, you know, uncle for that. And that's one, you know, I want to open, you know, I'm here for whoever sort of wants to, you know, whoever, you know, I would like for someone, you know, to appreciate me the same way I'm appreciating uncle. So if someone wants that help, you know, I'm here to help. And, you know, if anyone needs a bit of a guidance in this industry, all the youngers, you know, I'm there for you. So yeah.
Yeah, Brother Habib is not joking as well. We all need halal rizq. So we pray Allah accepts it from our uncle. I know who you mean, but inshallah, we won't embarrass him by mentioning his name, but may Allah accept it from him. And also, with your intention of helping the next generation, for anyone who is in this field or looking to perhaps enter this field, or, you know what I mean, have children school leaving age who are perhaps that, like, you know, that they're quite good with their hands, or, you know, that, you know, they don't want a desk job kind of, or they want a job where, you know what I mean, it's a bit in the real world, this might be the perfect industry for you. So Barakallahu feek. Once again, any further questions you might have, please feel free to post them in your WhatsApp groups. If you're in the Sisters WhatsApp group, let the admins know. They can pass that on, inshallah. Both brothers have mentioned that they're available for further inquiries. So once again, I want to thank you all for joining this installment of the Muslims in Business series. It's a bit of a change from our usual content. Alhamdulillah, it's important for us as Muslims to equip ourselves with knowledge. And once we have the knowledge, we can make better decisions. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and we'll see you next week for our regular program.